Hello, this is Gary with Gabbin with Gary. I had an interview with Anastasia, and it went really well. This is going to be part one of two. I hope you enjoy. Let's get right into it. Hello, my name is Gary with Gabbin with Gary, and we have Anastasia here, and she's going to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Anastasia, but I usually pronounce it in Ukrainian as Anastasia, or in Italian manner that I prefer more, Anastasia. I'm from Kiev City, from Ukraine. I'm almost 28 years old, and now I'm in Italy with my two kids and my mother-in-law.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how long have you been in Italy?
Since March 2022, almost a year.
Almost a year. So I'm really happy that you're in a place that's safe for sure. Um, so before February 24th, like the last month before, um, what was your situation like? How were you living? Were you thinking about the buildup? Were you worried? What was going through your mind?
We firstly started talking about possible war in November 2021. It happened that my British student from Manchester, during a Ukrainian lesson, I teach him Ukrainian language. He asked me about some news he was hearing in England. He told me, Anastasia, I've heard from my friend, he works as a journalist in Afghanistan, and from some mass media that there is possibility of war in Ukraine. What do you think about it? I was like, oh no, never. We hear about possibilities of war since 2014 and it never happened. So we were constantly hearing some news since 2014 about possible bombardments, possible wars, possible dangerous situations, escalations of conflict, but it never happened. So I was absolutely not considering it to be something really dangerous at that time. So I was like, no, don't worry. It's again something about mass media escalation of situation, not the real escalation. Later in December, my American student from Michigan asked me the same question. What do you think? And don't you want to leave Ukraine? I was like, no, I'm not going to leave Ukraine with my small kids. Who is waiting for me somewhere, not in Ukraine? He was like, okay, if you want, I can host you. But I was like, thank you very much. But the US is so far away from Ukraine. I have small kids. I don't think the possible conflict is really possible. So I don't think I have to leave now. Later, my Italian friends started calling me. It was January or early January, started asking me the same questions. And I was really angry and irritated by the same question. I was like, oh my God, it's impossible that you ask me so many times the same thing and I have to answer you that no, everything will be okay. Later, it was again January, my mom called me and started discussing what to do if war happens, what to do, where to go. And that was the point I really started thinking about it. And I decided for myself to be prepared, even if I was not really believing in the situation. I decided to prepare everything. Since 2014, I had all my documents together in one box because since 2014, we were preparing for possible something. So my documents and actually all the necessary things. And I started, thinking what to do in case something happens, where to go. I bought some candles. It was St. Valentine's Day. I went to the supermarket and I have seen some candles they were selling for Valentine's Day. I was like, okay, I buy some in case war happens. So I had some candles, some food, documents, some cash, just in case. And I remember my mom was like, in case you cannot go somewhere by car, you have to prepare a backpack so you can walk with two kids and backpack. I was like, okay, mom, I'll do it. But I don't think war is really going to happen. She told me, yes, I'm not thinking too, but just in case you have to be prepared. I was talking about this to my husband, but he was like, oh no, Putin is not so silly to start the war when everybody is talking about war. He could have started it before at any day in 2014, 15, 16, but he never did. So he is not so stupid to do it now. And he was absolutely, positive about everything. He wasn't thinking it was a real danger. And so when we were talking about what to do in case of war, he was like, we'll go to the countryside because nobody waits us in Europe. We were really thinking, if we go to Europe now, who's waiting for us? Nobody. So what we are going to do there? Nothing. So our plan was just to go to the countryside. It's not far away from Kyiv, about 150 kilometers northern versus the border with Belarus. It's Chernihiv region. So we decided in case something happens to go there because our idea was that Kyiv will be the major target of Russians. And nobody will think about going to some countryside and search for people there. So we were considering the countryside to be pretty safe. And also we had some fresh water there, and we had basement there and some vegetables. So we were thinking, okay, if we don't have food or fresh water in supermarkets, stores, and wherever, in the countryside, we will have this full access to fresh water and food. And also we have basement in case something happens to go down. Of course, what happened the 24th of February, we just went there because it was our decision to go there in case something happens. That's it.
So you were ready, you got all your stuff together, you packed up, which some people did and a lot of people did. And of course you had to gather all your paper documents because everything is on your phone. So how did you wake up on the 24th?
So it was about 4 in the morning, 4 and something. I woke up because I had to feed my kid. He was a small baby, so he was waking up pretty often during nighttime. And usually I was so sleepy that I just was going back to bed immediately. But that morning, I just don't know why I didn't want to go immediately back to sleep. I wasn't sleepy. And I've heard some noises. My first thought was, okay, maybe it was just a car passing and that's it, because we live in a city. There are some people who go by cars, by motorcycles, and it's pretty noisy. But when I heard the same sound the second time, I thought, no, it cannot be true. It cannot be, this just, coincidence. I woke up my husband. I told him that I've heard strange noises. He immediately decided to check social media because he told me, okay, if something happened or whatever, we should find some notifications, some news on Facebook, somewhere. He was sitting trying to check the news, but there was nothing there. People were asking on Facebook in comments what happened because a lot of people woke up, they've heard strange noise, so we're just writing comments on Facebook. What happened? Have you heard something? But no official answer from the government or something from official media. I told him to take our bank cards and go to withdraw cash, and also to go to the 24-hour supermarket and buy food, because I was pretty sure something happened, something serious. So he just got dressed and went to withdraw money, and he went to the supermarket. He came back. It was about 5 and something in the morning, and he told me that nobody knows nothing. He went to the supermarket, nothing happens, everything's okay. He went to withdraw cash. By the time he arrived there to the ATM, there were nobody there, but he saw a lot of people. He have seen a lot of people on the streets. So a lot of people were awake. And I told him, so, okay, let's just pack everything and go to the countryside, because if something happens, we are there. If nothing happens, we just can go back at any moment. It's not a problem. His reaction was strange. He decided to go and take the shower. While he was taking the shower, 15 minutes, I packed all our stuff together my kids' stuff, my stuff, his stuff. But my thought was just to take necessary things for 2 weeks. I was like, okay, if we go there, we stay there like 1-2 weeks, because I was not thinking about long war. I was like, okay, it will be conflict, whatever, escalation, but maximum 2 weeks. And later my mom called me because the president, he made a video where he told that the war started. She called me and she told me to leave. I asked her, Mom, are you going to live with us? She was, no, I'm going to stay here. It's my country, it's my city, it's my flat. I'm not going to go anywhere. And so it was 7 a.m. in the morning. We were all sitting in the car. We had seen a lot of people outside because they were waiting to enter the supermarket, crowds of people. Near the ATM to withdraw cash, crowds of people to enter the supermarket. We were in the car and we were leaving for the countryside at 7 a.m. And I got also the notification from the kindergarten of my daughter telling that that morning kids were not accepted to go to the kindergarten. And so by the time it was about 10 o'clock, I think we were in the countryside house.
So you were living in a flat
Yes,
and
I was living in a flat in Kiev.
and where's your mom?
My mom also lives in Kiev, but she lives like I would say 30 minutes walk from our home, so not far away.
And she also lives in a flat?
Yeah, she also lives in a flat, and she never left Ukraine since the war started. So she's in Ukraine now too.
And she's okay?
Yeah, she is okay. She is 69, and she basically cannot, she doesn't want to leave, first of all, because she says it's my home, it's my flat, it's my country, I'm not going to leave anywhere. And the second reason is that because it's difficult for her to go somewhere for long distances. After COVID, she had some certain health issues, so it's difficult for her to go somewhere far away. That's why she could have visited us here in Italy, but she never came because her house doesn't let her do it.
Okay, so when you went to your place in the you said in the countryside, did you bring anybody else besides your husband and your two kids?
No, because I asked my mom, my aunt, my mother's sister, they refused. With us was also my mother-in-law. She had COVID before the war, so she had her lockdown at our flat. So I asked her, but she decided not to go and stay in Kiev. And we also asked my husband's grandma. She was working the day, and the house in the countryside, it's hers, so it's in her property. We asked her, but she also refused to leave her working place because she worked as a concierge in a house, the 27 or 30 floor house, and she refused to leave because it was her day to work. So she had like 24 hours to stay there. And so we went there ourselves. But later in the evening, my mother-in-law called us, and she told us that she actually was talking to her mom, so my husband's grandma, and they decided to join us. So that evening, they managed to join us by their local railway, and we went to pick them from the railway station and bring them home. So from that evening and on, we were in the countryside in actually 6 people with my mother-in-law and my husband's grandma.
I'm sorry, something came up. I was like, uh-oh. How long did you stay in the countryside?
So we arrived there the 24th of February and we left the 7th of March. So about 2 weeks. The problem was that we were mistaken and we were thinking, oh, we are in the countryside, nobody is going to go here. But the 26th, if I remember correctly, February, our countryside just under occupation, under Russian occupation,
Oh,
because Russian troops, they were trying to get to Kiev. It was not possible for them, so they decided to go back and to hide themselves and their tanks near civilians in order to not to be killed. So about 180 tanks came to our village, to our countryside, and just parked their tanks near people's houses, in the gardens, near their fences, in order not to be killed by Ukrainian soldiers. They were trying to hide, to protect themselves by doing this. So, and that was the day we had, from that day and on, we had no electricity, no communication, no possibility to call, no internet connection, nothing. So just because, I don't know why, or it was because they arrived, or because Ukrainian government decided to cut the electricity in order to cut for Russians the possibility to have the connection. I don't know, but we were without electricity and without internet connection or mobile connection since then, because they parked their tanks everywhere in the countryside, in the village. But they told us they were not going to kill civilians or harm civilians somehow, because they had no order for this. So they just were trying to hide themselves and protect themselves. They didn't want to be killed. They had no possibility to come back to Russia. They had no possibility to go forward to Kiev. It was their initial plan. So they just wanted to save some time and just stay protected from Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian army.
okay. So when all the soldiers were there, were you actually considered occupied? Did they actually establish rules for the village?
No, they didn't. So they those were basically young man, 19 years old, 18. They were talking, they were absolutely friendly. They were talking to local people. They were asking for food because they had food only for 3 days. So they were hungry, they were thirsty, they were young, they were from Siberia, from very far away parts of Russia. They told they were brought to Ukraine by train. They had like 10 days trip to arrive to Ukraine. And they were expecting to occupy Ukraine quickly. So they had only food for 3 days, and so they were not doing any harm to civilians yet back then. And so they were talking to local people. They were not trying to put their flags to proclaim official occupation. They were just trying to hide themselves from Ukrainian soldiers. But what happened was that every evening when it was dark, Ukrainian aviation was bombarding their tanks. I don't know how it happened, but no civilians died, nobody were injured, because the bombardment was so precise that only tanks were bombarded. Ukrainian army managed to keep people safe, to tell people locally to leave their homes and bombard locally tanks and machines of Russians. So nobody were injured or killed in our countryside. And
That's
from
pretty
that
amazing.
point, we decided that we had to live somehow, because I had my baby boy son. I had, because of stress, lack of breast milk for him. I had no possibility to buy some artificial flavored milk, nothing, or just real cow's milk for him, nothing, because shops didn't work, no bread supply, no product supply. So I just was afraid for him to have no food. My second reason to worry about the situation was that we were hiding kids and ourselves during bombardments in the basement. It was cold, it was humid, and I was watching my kids sleeping on this humid, wet pavement of the basement, and I was thinking, oh my God, if they now have flu, pneumonia, whatever, what I'm going to do without pharmacy, doctor, hospital, antibiotics? We're going just to, to die here from any infection. And we started to think how to escape the village. we went to the local Ukrainian soldiers to ask whether there were some green corridors, some volunteers, whoever who could just somehow help us. Their answer was no. No green corridors, no volunteers, no evacuation buses, nothing. And they advised us not to leave the countryside and to sit quietly in our basement, just because it was like the 1st of March, the 2nd of March. There were cases when civilians were trying to leave occupation by their cars and were killed by soldiers. And so they told us, for us, it was shocking. It was the first time we ever heard about killing civilians in their cars while they were trying to leave occupation. But the advice was to sit and not to leave in order not to be killed during evacuation, during this attempt to escape. But again, the problem of food for my son was really important for us, because I was thinking what to do in case I don't have breast milk at all and nothing to substitute it. We decided to go and to check the forest road, because we knew from our relatives who lived in the countryside that in the middle of the forest there was one asphalt road to go through the forest and go back to Kiev. Our car is just normal Skoda Octavia car, so normal civilian car. And it's not a truck, it's not 4x4, so it cannot pass through mud where there is no asphalt. We went there to check the road, and we've seen that it was actually full of trees. Our local Ukrainian soldiers, they decided to cut trees, put on the road to block possible passage for Russian tanks. And they did so with all the roads. So it was absolutely impossible to leave the countryside, the village, because all the roads were blocked by wood. And they told us we had no chance to leave the village and we just had to wait. They brought us some sweets for kids, some artificial breast milk, some packages for him, and they told us just to sit and do nothing. We celebrated, my husband celebrated. It wasn't really a celebration. My husband's birthday, the 1st of March, his grandma's birthday on 6th of March, and we decided to leave whatever it cost. And it was very good that one soldier, he phoned us late in the evening, the 6th of March, and he told us, you see guys, tomorrow it will be very cold during nighttime, like 5 degrees, 6 degrees below zero. So the forest, the mud that is usually in the forest will be frozen. You can try and risk and go again through the forest, but as the mud will be frozen, you have the chance to pass through it because it will be pretty possible to do it. And we decided to risk. We were awake by 4 a.m. We packed our kids, everything we had. Grandma decided to stay in the countryside. She didn't want to leave. Our mother-in-law decided to go with us to help us with kids. She was worried about kids, and she told us, okay, guys, I can go with you and accompany you to the Ukrainian border, because she told us there is no sense just to go back to Kiev. If you leave, you have to leave, and you have to leave the country. My friends were calling me from Italy. They were telling me, come here, we'll find everything, we'll find you a job, we'll find you everything, just go. And so we decided if we leave the countryside, if we manage to leave it safely, to leave the country too. And so she left with us. Our grandma stayed in the countryside. And fortunately, we managed to leave. So I remember that morning we were crossing the street. Navigator doesn't work because no connection, no telephone. My husband just was, stopping the car every 5 minutes to go for a walk and see whether there is passage or no. The same was doing my mother-in-law. I was staying near the car with my kids. Fortunately, they were sleepy, so they were just watching cartoons, and they were pretty okay. I remember that I was just praying out loud. I was singing some church gospel songs out loud because I didn't know what was expected for us. I was thinking, what if we find Russian tanks here? What if? Unfortunately, we've managed to leave the countryside. By 2 p.m. the same day, we were at our home. Not by 1 p.m. The same day, we were at our flat in Kiev. We managed to take some clothes with us. At 2 o'clock, we were on the railway station, because I've seen before on the internet, I had internet connection in my car when we were driving through Kiev, that there is a train. There was a train at 2 p.m. From Kiev to Ivano-Frankivsk, passing through Lviv. And that was okay, we have to get on that train. We arrived, all of us, my mother-in-law, my husband, me, kids, we arrived to the railway station. It was overcrowded. Crowds of people everywhere. There was a train at 2 o'clock with its doors closed, a lot of people already inside, a lot of people outside. And I was like, we're not going to go and get this train. It's impossible. No space for us. When finally the train opened the doors, people started just to push everybody inside, just to run, to cry, to try to get in. It was a complete mess. We were staying there. I had my kids with me, and I was thinking, we are going to die here in this mess, because people just can push us and we can suffocate. What happened later, again, thanks for soldiers. There was one soldier, group of soldiers who cried, are there kids? And I started shouting, yes, I have a small baby, 5 months. I started shouting. And they were, okay, give me the kid. We had the lolly, this not a stroller. It was a part of a stroller with my son inside, it's like a basket. So we just grabbed the basket with my kid and started above our heads to give him in the basket to the soldiers and to the train. And so it happened, we were staying outside on the station, and my son was already in the train, because soldiers above their heads just gave him inside. I was continuing shouting, I'm the mother and I have one more kid with me. I was shouting so loudly that soldiers made me a corridor.
Oh
They
boy.
made me a corridor, and I managed to go in the train with my daughter, my mother-in-law. We went inside. They didn't let my husband go inside because they told the train was only for women and kids. I managed to get in the train. My husband was launching me some of our things, and I was asking where my son was, because he was already somewhere in the train. I was asking people, have you seen a baby? Have you seen a small baby? Have you seen a small baby somewhere? They were like, don't worry, it's already inside somewhere. You're going to find him later. The important part is that you go inside and we can go. The train left. I found my son. We were sitting just, it was impossible to sit like people sit in normal trains. I was sitting on my back in the corridor. And near me was sitting pregnant woman, the same on her back in the corridor. My daughter was sleeping here with me. My mother-in-law was sitting in the same way with my son. And we had this 16 hours journey to Lviv by that train. My husband managed to get the second train and go after us again to Lviv. And so we left the city and we decided to stop in Lviv. While going to Lviv, we were trying to call our friends there to find where to stay, some people who can host us. We organized everything. We managed some people from the church who were able to host us for some 2 or 3 nights. We found volunteers who could drive us from the railway station to the flat. And so we managed to escape the city. And late at night, it was about 3 a.m., the 8th of March, we arrived to the host family in Lviv, together with kids, bags, and whatever. So the 8th of March, the Women's Day, we spent in Lviv. We were in Lviv with the host family. Our husband managed to reach us later. And basically, I was considering kids to be more or less safe. So it was a great relief for me because we were all day long traveling.
Right. Were you scared at any point?
I was scared before leaving because I didn't know what was expected for us. I was scared when we heard Ukrainian aviation bombarding Russian tanks. I was thinking, what if they just bombard accidentally our house? And for some, to some extent, I was even preparing myself to die. I was thinking, okay, if something hits our house now, at least our house is wooden, so we all probably are going to die almost immediately. And if we're going to die almost immediately, it's best case scenario. So I was thinking about this too. And but when we left, when we managed to leave the countryside, the forest, when we get to the train station, I was thinking it's so crowded. So it's probable that Russians will bombard the station. And it later happened with, not Kramatorsk. Yes, with Kramatorsk, when they bombarded railway station, when people were trying to get from that city. I was like, we are here, a lot of people together with us, they can bombard the station. But when we finally get to Lviv, I felt better. I felt relief because I was considering us to be pretty safe.
And so on March 8th, you left Ukraine?
No, because we were so tired. We decided to stay one more day in Lviv to sleep, to eat, and leave the next day. So we left on March the 9th. The family who hosted us in Lviv, they organized us the bus, who just, they brought us to the border. From Lviv to the border is about 20 kilometers. And we crossed the border on foot because the bus arrived to the Polish border and left to bring some more people. So we had all our stuff with us, kids, and we had to cross the border on foot. Fortunately, I speak Polish. Again, languages are nice, are useful. I speak Polish. So there were a lot of people trying to cross the border. I was shouting in Polish that I have a small baby with me.
Oh boy.
And Polish officers, they made me a corridor. They made me to cross the border in an hour, I would say, with my kids on foot. My husband, of course, he wasn't able to live with us. So it was the last time we've seen my husband. My daughter, she was not understanding why she cannot go with her dad. It was really, drastic moment of saying goodbyes because crowd of people, you have to go, you cannot stay, you cannot talk much, and just have to leave. And your husband, the father of your kids, who stays behind and could do nothing. And my son was small, he was sleeping, and it was not as difficult for him, but for my daughter, it was really difficult because she wasn't understanding what was going on and why we managed to arrive to the border altogether. But my husband couldn't just go with us. So we crossed the border. It was afternoon of 9th of March. And actually, I'm so grateful to Polish people, to Polish soldiers, because they made me pass. They were actually pretty nice and friendly. So they heard that I have a small child and they let me just go without waiting in line. It was cold outside. It was March. It was, I don't know, 10 degrees, maybe not more. So we were crossing the border on foot. So it was really good because we didn't have to wait with small kid outside, cross the border on foot. So we crossed the border with my mother-in-law, fortunately, because at that point she decided to continue the trip with us, and not to leave me with all kids, clothes, stuff, myself. So we continued our traveling in four. Me, my mother-in-law, and two kids.
And you're still all together?
Yes, we're still all together in Italy because she had hard times here because she's 52, and for her it's very difficult to start life in a new country. So he has this dream to come back home as soon as possible, and she's constantly talking about this going back. But she postpones it all the time because she doesn't want to leave me with kids alone. Fortunately, I'm so grateful because it's difficult. It's better when you have two more hands to carry take care about kids and whatever. So I don't know when and if she will leave for Ukraine before us or not, but for the moment we are all together.
And do you eventually feel like you're going to end up going back?
I really hope to go back to Ukraine. I still have these hopes because the problem is the war. I don't
Well, it's
see
definitely a
any.
problem.
Yes, but I think that we can still have a nice life in Ukraine, even with destroyed countries, economy that has problems. I think that in this case, the most important thing is people. So if people have this will to go on, to continue building their country, I think we can, just have good life even in post-war country. So I think, but it's difficult, to say it now, because what if war goes on for 5 years or 3 years, 2 years? My daughter, she's 4, almost 5. She stays pretty okay here. So when I ask her, "Do you want to go back to Ukraine, honey?" She says, "No, I'm okay here." So the longer we stay here, the more kids adapt to the life here, and the more they're Italians, let's say, they are used to this life, to this food, to this water, to this air, and the more difficult it will be later to grab them and take it back home, because for it's difficult. We have lost this concept of home, because in Ukraine our home is not our home anymore as it was prior to 21st February, and here it's not our home because we're in a foreign country. So I have no idea what's waiting for us, but my hope is that wars end soon and we are able to go back to Ukraine, because our family is still here. Nobody left Ukraine, it's only we. So our family members, all they are in Ukraine, grandmas, grandpas, my mom, my husband, whatever. But I cannot say it for sure, because it's difficult to decide it right now.
What is your husband doing in Ukraine?
He's working. Fortunately, he has some health issues, so he is not able to do military service, and so he's working. He has his laser cut machines to cut plywood, plastic, 3D printer, and so he has his small production of some crafts. He produces now some maps of Ukraine in plywood with LED lights in color of Ukrainian national flag. So basically, with this small production, he manages to earn a living, and he manages to support the army, to donate some money to the army.
Is he selling his products online?
Yes, he's selling his products online on Instagram, Etsy, Facebook, and Ukrainian marketplaces.
You need to give me those links send me those links so I'll put them in the description.
Of course I will.
Anything that will make it helpful. I think another question I have, and I'm sorry. So now we were talking before we recorded, and now we're here, and we talked. You mentioned being a refugee, which you are now. How does that stigma make you feel?
Actually, the most part of time, I don't really feel it being a refugee, just because I know the Italian language and culture, and I have a lot of friends here. So here people, they don't make difference between me and other people because I know the language. So they have no prejudice to me or something else. So they treat me with dignity. I have no problems not being a citizen of Italy because I know the culture, the language, and the local mentality. What's more, I play here in the local church every Sunday. I have my Italian friends here. So basically, during these moments of my life, I don't feel as I'm really a refugee, because I understand people who go somewhere, they don't know the language, the culture, and they are completely lost. In my case, it's better. And my kids also, because of me, have the same attitude from, the society. In the kindergarten and wherever we go, we have, fortunately, only, um, good attitude towards us. We live here. It's a small community. There are a lot of volunteers, local church. People treat us well, so no problems with it. But the most difficult time for me was Christmas. When I was sitting here on Christmas Eve in absolutely, in not my house, in clothes given to me by some volunteers, celebrating Christmas without my family, while all the people were exchanging presents, having this Christmas Eve dinner, whatever. I was sitting in a strange house with, different, well, was not my clothes, was not my stuff around me. And it was difficult. It was difficult to understand that you, as a refugee, have to celebrate all. But birthday is not as difficult for me. Birthday was not this moment of crisis, but Christmas definitely was, because while people have their normal life here, we were just sitting ourselves on Christmas Eve, and it was not really Christmas. So of course we have some moments when we feel really that we are refugees, but not because of how people treat us, but because we ourselves are pretty lonely in a foreign country. But fortunately, these moments happen not every day, not often, sometimes.
And what are you doing for work?
Now, as I told you before, I'm just, as I was doing it in Ukraine, I have my students and I'm just teaching languages. I am teaching
And you do that
languages.
all online?
Yes, I do this all online. I also, actually, I teach Italian as foreign language. I teach English, teach Ukrainian, do some translation. I'm translator, interpreter, so I can do anything like this online too. Because here in Italy, it's very difficult to, send both kids to kindergarten. My son is only 1 years old. It's very difficult to find him a place, so he is at home. And it's difficult to work when you have kids at home with you. So the only thing I have to do now is do something online.
And I'm sorry, do people pay you to learn a different language online?
Of course they do, because it's like it was even before war, my only way of earning money, having kids at home with me. It was only possible way for me to work. But in Ukraine, I was doing it just for work, just not for money, but to have something in life besides family and kids. Here I started working more because prices in Italy are not as in Ukraine. And kids always, require a lot of money for all the activity they do. Fortunately, we are helped much by the Italians, by volunteers. So really, I have the possibility to work and to stay with kids because the country helps us and the local people help us too.
And do you have a website for your language
Yes,
session?
it's not my own website. I work through the platform called Preply. Maybe you've heard about it. It's
Um,
an international platform for teachers from all over the world. And the guys from Preply are also nice people, because before war, there was commission for every lesson for teachers. For teachers who worked for a long time, the commission was like about 18% from every lesson. Since 24th February, they canceled all commission fees for teachers from Ukraine. So now all trial lesson payments and the whole amount of money students pay for the lesson to the website gives to teachers. They don't take money. They give everything to teachers who are from Ukraine. And there were a lot of people on the platform They just were booking lessons with me first weeks of war and writing me, we're not going to learn the language. We just want to help you. Unknown people from different parts of the world, just they were booking the first lesson, writing me something like, if you wish, we can just talk about you, about war, about whatever, but we don't want to have really lessons. We
Hey,
just
this
want
is Gary again. Thanks for listening to part one of Anastasia. Please like and subscribe. All links will be in the description. I hope you guys have a great one. Please check back tomorrow for part two. Have a great day.